Have you ever walked into the kitchen and stood there, staring at the cupboard, wondering why you came in the first place? Maybe you paused mid-conversation because the word you were about to say simply vanished, leaving you scrambling for another. If you've experienced moments like these more often than feels normal, you're not alone, and it could be an early warning sign you don't want to ignore. Talking about dementia can feel heavy, but catching its clues early is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself and the people who care about you. It's not about scaring you, it's about empowering you. When you recognize the soft whispers of change, you can seek help, make plans, and strengthen habits that support your brain health. Today, we're going to walk through the first 2 of 7 early warning signs of dementia that you should never brush off, especially if you're over 60. These are gentle red flags, subtle shifts in memory and daily life that deserve attention. Let's start with the most familiar one. Those little memory lapses that go beyond forgetting a name or misplacing your glasses. Everyone misplaces things now and then, but with dementia, you'll notice consistent trouble remembering recent events or conversations. For example, you might meet a neighbor in the grocery aisle, chat about your grandchildren, and then 10 minutes later, forget you ever saw them. Or you could read a page in your favorite book and by the time you turn the page, the story has already slipped away. I remember my friend Joan mentioning this over coffee last month. She laughed it off at first. "Oh, my memory," she joked, until she realized she was asking her daughter the same question about her appointment 5 times in one afternoon. That pattern felt different. It wasn't just a senior moment, it was a worry moment. When you notice yourself hesitating over details you once took for granted, it's time to pause and listen to your instincts. Jot down when and how often these lapses happen, and share your notes with your doctor. Early evaluation can help rule out other causes, like medication side effects or vitamin deficiencies, and get you on the right path. Beyond forgetting recent conversations, another sign you shouldn't ignore is difficulty in performing familiar tasks. You know those everyday routines you've done 1,000 times, making your morning coffee, balancing your checkbook, or finding your way to the same grocery store, and suddenly they feel unfamiliar? That's a red flag. Perhaps you start your coffee maker but forget to add water, or you open your checkbook and can't remember the steps to reconcile your account. It's not about getting slower, it's about the routine itself feeling like a puzzle you can't quite solve. Take my neighbor Tom's story. He's a retired engineer who's always been methodical, blueprints, schedules, the works. A few weeks ago he called me in a panic because he'd sat down to pay the electric bill and completely blanked on where he kept his bills. Then, when he found them, he typed in a random number and realized only after hitting send that he'd paid the gas company twice and the electric company not at all. He felt embarrassed, but that slip was his wake-up call. He reached out to his doctor, who suggested a few simple tests and a list of brain-friendly activities to keep things sharp. Of course, everyone has off days. Stress, poor sleep, or a heavy schedule can throw anyone's memory or focus for a loop. The key is noticing patterns. When those familiar tasks regularly become strange territory, it's a sign to pay attention. You might start keeping a checklist by the coffee maker, or use sticky notes on your bills as a temporary aid. But even better than tricks and tools is talking to your physician. Early screening can determine whether these changes stem from mild cognitive impairment, treatable conditions, or the beginnings of dementia. Now that we've talked about the first 2 early warning signs, trouble remembering recent events and difficulty performing familiar tasks, it's time to continue exploring. In the next part, we'll look at another pair of clues that often appear quietly at first but shouldn't be ignored. Changes in language and mood shifts that fly under the radar. Recognizing those next whispers of change can make all the difference in protecting your health and planning for the future. So let's keep going together, picking up from where we left off. Let's explore 2 more gentle but important signals that deserve your attention. After noticing memory slips and struggles with familiar tasks, you might start to see other subtle shifts. First in the way you speak and then in the way you feel. These changes aren't your fault and they don't define you, but they can be helpful clues if you learn to recognize them early. Have you ever been in the middle of a simple conversation and suddenly reached for a word that just wouldn't come? Maybe you paused in a sentence, searching for spoon or appointment, only to find yourself substituting something like "that thing I eat soup with," or "that meeting time." Everyone occasionally fumbles for words, especially when we're tired or distracted. But if you begin finding yourself repeatedly using general words, saying "thing" too often, or if you're unable to follow the thread of a story because you lose track of what's being said, those are warning signs you shouldn't ignore. Consider my friend Sarah, who's in her mid-60s and always had a gift for storytelling. Lately, she told me she feels like she's losing her narrative. She found herself telling the same anecdote twice in one gathering, or stumbling when she tried to describe a simple event. What used to flow naturally through her fingertips now felt like wading through molasses. At first, she brushed it off as stress or a busy mind. But when she noticed herself nodding blankly while a friend recounted a simple recipe, or worse, when her daughter pointed out she'd replaced words in her grocery list with vague placeholders, she realized something more than fatigue was happening. Language difficulty shows up in two ways: expressive and receptive. Expressive language is your ability to find the right word and use it in conversation. Receptive language is your capacity to understand what someone else is saying. With dementia, both can be affected. You might watch TV and suddenly be unable to follow the plot, not because the story is complex, but because the words slip past you. Or you might struggle to get your point across, feeling frustrated and even embarrassed when you can't explain a memory that used to be crystal clear. If you notice these moments piling up, try keeping a small journal of when they occur. Did you lose the word umbrella 3 times this week? Were you confused by a simple instruction at your doctor's office? Jot it down. Sharing these notes with your doctor can lead to a clearer picture and faster support. Speech therapists and cognitive specialists can also offer exercises to bolster your word-finding skills. From gentle naming games to memory drills that reconnect vocabulary with images. As we pay attention to changes in language, it's equally vital to notice changes in mood or personality. We expect our emotions to ebb and flow with life's ups and downs. Of course, we feel grumpy on a rainy morning or lonely after a lost pet. But dementia can bring shifts that feel out of sync with the situation, like slipping into apathy, depression, or anxiety without clear cause. You might see a loved one who was always cheerful become withdrawn, or someone who usually manages stress calmly start reacting with tears or anger far more easily. Take Tom, who's a retired schoolteacher with a reputation for patience. His wife initially chalked his sudden irritability up to back pain or poor sleep. But when he began snapping at the kids over minor mistakes, or grew tearful during commercials that never used to bother him, she suspected something deeper was at play. These mood swings weren't just a rough patch, they were the brain's way of signaling that the circuits handling emotion and memory were facing challenges. Emotional changes can look like rapid mood swings, laughing one moment, confused and upset the next, or a flat affect, where you see little reaction to good or bad news. Anxiety can surface as constant worry over little things, even after reassurance. Depression may appear as loss of interest in once-loved activities or sleeping far more or far less than usual. And apathy can show up when someone simply seems less motivated, suddenly neglecting hobbies, personal care, or social outings they once enjoyed. If you or someone you know starts to show these emotional shifts, it's worth bringing them up with a healthcare provider sometimes. What looks like dementia can be side effects of new medications, thyroid issues, or vitamin deficiencies, all treatable with the right approach. Even when the changes are part of dementia's path, mental health professionals can offer strategies, counseling designed for older adults, support groups that validate these feelings, and safe activities to help restore joy and engagement. As you watch for shifts in mood, remember to practice self-compassion and open communication. If you find yourself slipping into irritability, take a moment to pause and breathe. Perhaps step outside for fresh air or pick up a favorite book that brings calm. If a friend or family member notices you seem different, listen to their observations with curiosity, not shame. Early conversations about these changes can spark connection and lead to resources that ease the transition for everyone involved. Now we've covered language and mood changes, 2 gentle but significant signals you should never overlook. They often sneak up quietly, hiding in everyday moments, yet they hold the power to guide you toward early support and peace of mind. Next, we'll explore 2 more of the 7 early warning signs that shine a light on subtle shifts in thinking and movement. We'll look at challenges with planning or problem solving, and changes in coordination or balance that may seem like ordinary aging but could be telling a different story. Recognizing these clues early gives you the best chance to seek help, adapt your surroundings, and embrace each day with confidence. Let's keep moving forward together. By now, you've learned to listen to memory hiccups, those moments when a familiar task suddenly feels foreign, then to notice words that slip away and mood shifts that arrive uninvited. These first 4 signs deserve our kindness and attention. Now let's pick up right where we left off and explore 2 more clues. Subtle shifts in thinking and orientation that can quietly signal deeper changes. Have you ever sat down with a cup of tea, intending to balance your checkbook or follow a favorite recipe, only to find the steps jumble together. Maybe you opened your banking app to pay bills and felt overwhelmed by what used to be routine math, or you began making your signature stew and couldn't remember whether you chopped the onions before or after you measured the broth. It's not simply feeling a bit slower, it's that planning and problem solving, the mental glue that holds tasks in order, starts to break down. I remember my neighbor George, a retired accountant, mentioning one afternoon how odd it felt to sit at his desk and stare at his ledger. He'd always relished the logic of numbers. But lately, adding columns and spotting small discrepancies took far more effort. It wasn't occasional distraction. It was a clear pattern of losing the thread of a process. He'd find himself rereading the same line 3 times before the pieces clicked back into place. These planning glitches can show up in many ways. Missing steps when cooking, forgetting to mail a check after preparing it, losing track of payment deadlines, or fumbling through simple projects like planting bulbs in the garden. At first glance, you might blame stress or multitasking, but if these moments become consistent, if you catch yourself rereading recipes or double-checking tasks you always managed before, it's time to pause and take note. Writing down these episodes in a journal with dates and brief descriptions can help your doctor see patterns over weeks and months. Early evaluation allows professionals to distinguish between occasional lapses and signs that extra support or strategy changes are needed. Making a few simple adjustments can help right away. You might break complicated tasks into smaller steps and jot each one on a sticky note. Chop onions, measure broth, stir in spices, checking them off as you go. Digital reminders can prompt you when bills are due, and apps with guided instructions can walk you through cooking or home projects. These strategies aren't about giving up independence. They're about arming you with tools to keep your days running smoothly. Along with planning challenges, another often overlooked sign is confusion with time and place. We all lose track of the date now and then. Perhaps holidays blur together, but dementia can turn your calendar into a haze. You might wake up thinking it's Monday when it's actually Thursday, or plan to meet a friend at the usual cafe and suddenly realize you're nowhere near home or the neighborhood you know best. Take my friend Lila's experience. She lived in the same town for 4 decades, knew every street by heart, and never got lost. One morning she took her usual walk, then paused, puzzled by unfamiliar houses. It was only half a mile from home, but in that moment, her mind couldn't place her surroundings. She felt a knot of panic until a neighbor drove by and recognized her. Later, Lila admitted she couldn't believe how disoriented she'd felt, like the world around her had quietly shifted while she wasn't looking. Disorientation can be mild at first. You might glance at the clock and see 9:15, but feel convinced it's still the early morning hour you woke up at. Or you might arrive at a friend's house for your weekly card game and stand on the porch, wondering if you're supposed to be somewhere else. Sometimes people with this sign describe a vague fog that makes it hard to see familiar places clearly. If you sense this drifting in time or place, it's wise to take action. Simple safeguards like carrying a small notebook with your address written clearly, wearing a medical ID bracelet, or using a GPS-enabled watch can reduce anxiety and keep you safe during moments of confusion. At home, keeping clocks and calendars prominently displayed can help anchor your sense of today's date and current time. More importantly, sharing these experiences with your doctor can lead to an evaluation that uncovers whether this confusion is a red flag for dementia or a side effect of medication, sleep issues, or another treatable condition. By tuning into difficulties with planning and problem solving, and by honoring moments when time or place slips through your fingers, you're giving yourself a head start on early support. These are not just awkward blips, they're invitations to build a life with extra clarity and comfort. Finally, there's one more sign that often hides in plain sight: withdrawal from work or social activities you once loved. Maybe you're saying no to your weekly bridge game because it feels too hard, or you're canceling that quilting club meetup more often than you attend. Perhaps you once looked forward to hosting family dinners, but find the thought of managing the menu and cleaning up overwhelming. When you step back from activities that brought you joy and purpose, especially when you can still physically do them, it's a signal worth heeding. But that, and how to respond with hope and action, is exactly what we'll explore in the final part. We'll look at the 7th early warning sign and then bring these insights together in a warm, uplifting conclusion. Because noticing these signs isn't about fear, it's about choosing support, adapting your surroundings, and safeguarding the vibrant life you deserve. Let's continue this journey together. Picking up from our last chat, you've already learned to notice slips in memory. Those moments when familiar routines feel like puzzles, the way words can slip right through your mind, and how mood shifts can arrive without warning. We also talked about those gentle flags in planning, when balancing a checkbook or following a recipe feels like climbing a steep hill, and the disorientation that can make your own neighborhood look strangely unfamiliar. Now let's turn our attention to one final early warning sign, and then weave all these clues together in a hopeful, empowering way. Have you ever found yourself saying no to invitations you used to love, skipping the weekly bridge game because it seems too hard, or bowing out of the pottery class that once sparked your excitement? Maybe you're canceling lunches with friends more often than you attend them, or that gardening project on your porch has sat untouched for weeks. It's one thing to have a busy season or prefer quiet evenings now and then, but it's another when you gradually pull away from the people and hobbies that once filled you with joy. This gentle retreat, when we drop the activities that used to light us up, is often our mind's signal that something isn't as easy as it used to be. We may feel embarrassed or frustrated, so we avoid the very things we need most: social connection, mental engagement, and a sense of purpose. I think of my neighbor Carol, who was an avid knitter and loved hosting her weekly Stitch and Chat circle. Lately, she told me she'd stopped going because she just couldn't keep up with the pattern, and she worried she'd hold everyone else back. What began as a small excuse turned into 6 weeks away from the group, until one friend spotted her at the cafe window all alone and gently reminded her how much they missed her. When you hear that quiet whisper pulling you away, whether it's from bridge, book clubs, volunteer work, or family gatherings, pay attention. That withdrawal is sign 7. Pulling back from work or social activities you once enjoyed. It's not a badge of failure. It's an invitation to notice that something in your thinking or memory is shifting. And when you catch it early, you have the power to reach out, ask for help, and find ways to stay engaged. So what can you do when you notice this pull away? First, be gentle with yourself. Acknowledge that remembering patterns or following group activities may feel trickier right now, and that's okay. Next, consider simple adaptations. Bring a notebook to your knitting circle with your current stitch count written down, or use a calendar alert on your phone for book club dates. If a bridge game feels fast-paced, ask a friend to play a slower hand with you or switch to a game you both enjoy. Often, small tweaks can bridge the gap so you can remain part of the community that nourishes your spirit. Now let's bring these 7 early warning signs into a single supportive picture. When you pay attention to memory hiccups, you're tuning in to your mind's whispers. When you notice those familiar tasks growing unfamiliar, you're spotting the brain's gentle flag. When words falter or moods shift, you're honoring your emotions as guides. When planning and problem-solving feel like climbing mountains, you're recognizing that your mind may need extra support. When time and place lose their grip, you're safeguarding your safety and peace of mind. And when you feel the pull away from your favorite activities, you're hearing the final early warning bell. None of these signs are meant to define you or make you feel less capable. Instead, they're clues, like road signs on a journey, pointing you toward help, strategies, and resources. If you've noticed any of these shifts in yourself or someone you love, the most powerful next step is a visit to the doctor. Early evaluation can uncover whether these changes come from mild cognitive impairment, treatable conditions like vitamin deficiencies or vision issues, or the beginnings of dementia. The sooner you know, the sooner you can tap into support. Cognitive therapies, medications, lifestyle adjustments, and community programs designed to keep your mind active and your days full. Beyond medical care, you have a toolkit of simple, everyday actions that can bolster your brain health. Regular physical activity, walking, tai chi, gentle stretching, boosts blood flow to your brain. Healthy eating rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins gives your neurons the nutrients they crave. Mental workouts, puzzles, reading aloud, learning a new skill keep your mind nimble. And above all, nurturing your social connections, staying in your clubs, laughing with friends, sharing stories, feeds the heart, which in turn nourishes the brain. If these ideas resonate, I'd love to hear your experiences and tips in the comments below. Maybe you found a game that keeps the mind sharp, or you have a daily ritual that helps you keep track of appointments with ease. Sharing those insights can spark someone else's path to early support. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more senior-focused health guidance, and hit the notification bell so we can keep learning together. Remember, noticing these 7 early warning signs is a gift you give yourself and the ones you love. It's a way of saying, I care enough to pay attention. By taking action early, through conversations with your doctor, adjustments in your routine, and gentle strategies to stay engaged, you're choosing to protect your independence, your safety, and your joy. Here's to listening to those small signals, taking steps that keep your mind strong, and living each day with confidence and connection. You deserve support, understanding, and the vibrant life that comes from early awareness. Thank you for spending this time with me. Together, we've learned the signs, the strategies, and the hope that comes from early action. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep cherishing every moment. The best is yet to come.